morning everyone and welcome to today's English lesson. Before I start on the lesson, I want to plug a couple of reading suggestions to you. The first one comes from Evelyn in Jackdaw class, who recommended this book, Murder Most Unladylike. Now I like the sound of this because I do love a good murder mystery, so once I've finished the books I'm on at the moment, maybe I will give this a go. I noticed when I googled it that there is a series of books, so if that's your cup of tea, then why not give it a go? If you're not really a big fiction reader and you prefer something non-fiction, then the school does have a subscription to First News. Obviously you're not in school at the moment, so you haven't got access to the newspapers themselves. However, during the pandemic, we do have access to an online version of it, which the link which should be on your blog. If it's not, then get in contact with your teachers and ask them to put it on there. I have sent it to them all, so hopefully they have included it somewhere on your blog so that you can access this. And it comes out weekly, so there's lots of different articles in there for all different interests. If fluffy kittens is your thing like me, then there's probably an article on that in there somewhere, so something to please everyone. Okay, on to today's lesson. Okay, so Thursday the 28th of January 2021, I'm getting the date right now. And our learning intention is, can I use a formal style of writing? So please pause, get that written down and restart when you're ready to move on. Right, as with previous days then, I've got a question here, like a spag question, as we like to call them, on formality. So have a go at this question, pause the video, have a go, and then restart it when you're ready to go through the answers together. Okay, welcome back. So it says, circle the most formal option in each box below to complete the invitation. We would like to invite you to now, would we like to invite you to a catch-up, a celebration, or a get-together? Which of those sounds the most formal, do you think? Now, I have to admit, hands up, I struggled with this top one. I was like, oh, none of them sound particularly formal to me, but I think the most formal for me is the celebration. Helps if I click on the pencil. Okay, so I think probably celebration. If you disagree with me, put it on the blog, let me know. To mark this, fab occasion, really cool occasion, momentous occasion. That one I think is pretty obvious, that momentous is that most formal word there, and it will start up, commence or kick off at 5 p.m. Again, I think this one is much more clear, and I would go commence. That's another way of start, isn't it? A more formal way of saying start, a posher way of saying start, shall we say. Okay, so thinking back to yesterday's lesson where we started planning, or I showed you what I might do to plan a report on rationing, and I had my subheadings down the side here, didn't I? And then for each one I put in some of the information that I might want to include within that section. Okay, so today's lesson I'm going to go off screen and go to my laptop, and I'm going to model to you how I might write, what I might include, what I might say in my section about why was rationing introduced. Okay, so I am going to switch to my computer. Okay, so I'm going to model to you doing the section on why was rationing introduced. And as we've discussed before, let me make that a bit bigger on the screen. And maybe make the font a bit bigger so that it is clearer for you. Obviously, if you're typing at home, you don't need to be doing lots of big font for me to make it look like you've written more. I can tell how much you've written. You don't need to make the font look bigger to make it look like you've written more than you have. Okay, why was rationing introduced? Okay. Let the reader know what the paragraph, that section is going to be about. Engage them with a question. Okay. And then I'm going to explain. So I wanted to explain to them about the fact that we imported a lot of our food from abroad. And obviously because the Germans were attacking, the amount that we imported was reduced. So therefore food was in shorter supply. And that's why rationing came about. So prior to World War II, comma, I've got a fronted adverbial there, followed by a comma, Britain imported much of the food abroad. In an attempt, to weaken the British, and that is a subordinate clause, so I'm going to put a comma after it, because actually that wouldn't make sense on its own as a sentence, wouldn't it? I couldn't have that in an attempt to weaken the British as a sentence, because it wouldn't make sense. So that's a subordinate clause, adding extra information to explain why the German submarines attacked ships in the English Channel. Okay, so German submarines attacked ships in the English Channel. Notice how I've got a capital C for channel, because English Channel, it's the name, it's the proper noun, it's the name that we give to the waterway between us and France. Okay, this resulted in a dramatic reduction of food imports. And then I am denied about whether to put a comma here or not, because I'm going to now say, give them some figures about how that's been reduced. So I'm going to put from 55 million tonnes a year to just 12 million tonnes. So that gives the reader a good idea about why or how much less food we had in the country, and it helps to explain why rationing needed to be introduced. Okay, and then I want to say, in order to ensure that there was sufficient food for everyone, and I'm adding in a parenthesis here, so I've chosen to use commas around this, but I could have used other forms of parentheses, of brackets and dashes, but I think commas work best here, irrespective of wealth, rationing was introduced. Full stop. Okay, so that's my introduction that I want to include there. And if we look through, we can see some of the language that I've used is more formal. I think prior to, so rather than saying before World War II, prior to sounds to me a little bit more formal. Much of their food rather than a lot of food. What else have we got? Trying to, we've got in an attempt to, we could have said trying to weaken. What else have I got? I think sort of a dramatic reduction sounds quite formal, doesn't it? In order to ensure, so you know, I'm saying to make sure, sufficient rather than enough. Okay, and irrespective of wealth, so no matter how rich or poor you were. I think you can see that I've used some more formal language there. You can see I've used a comma after a fronted adverbial. I've got myself a complex sentence in here, so that's my subordinate clause, and I've separated those two clauses with a comma, and then I've got some commas around, I can't find it now, irrespective of wealth, because I could have taken that out. So parenthesis you could take out, and I could have, in order to ensure that there was sufficient food for everyone, rationing was introduced. But I wanted to make the point here that it didn't matter whether you're rich or poor, because I think what happened in World War One, if I'm correct, is that the wealthier you were, the luckier you were to get the food. Okay, so that helps to make that point there. Anyway, hopefully that's helped. Today I'd like you to start writing your report. Tomorrow we're going to be doing the editing stations for it. Now, just to give you an idea of the quantity that I am expecting from you, this is from another school's website showing a girl that has written a report on World War II, more in general, talks about different aspects of World War II, and that's the quantity that she's written. So that's the sort of thing that I'm expecting. I mean, her handwriting is quite big, But we are really expecting at least a side of A4 from you for your report if you've got smaller handwriting. If, like her, you've got bigger handwriting or you're typing it and you're using quite large font, then I'm expecting probably 2 sides of A4 from you. Okay, so we want a decent amount of information in there. We want it to make it an interesting, informative piece of writing. So you might have to go back and do a little bit more research if you haven't got enough information at this stage. Anyway, hopefully that's all good. Let us know of any problems on the blog, and I will see you tomorrow to talk through the editing of your reports. Take care. Bye.